playing?
I felt so proud. I remember seeing the buses arriving and the people walking to the Lincoln Memorial. What I remember most is that mass When the March on Washington took place, I had just graduated from high school and watched on TV at my home in Henrietta, North Carolina. My job that summer was to make my clothes for college. My mother had a pedal Singer sewing machine. At that time, my college had a policy of skirts only during the week. So that summer, I was busy sewing. I moved the sewing machine into the living room so I could watch the march. I felt so proud. I remember seeing the buses arriving and the people walking to the Lincoln Memorial. What I remember most is that mass of people stretching far beyond the reflecting pool. Young, old, black, and white. I went on to college and forgot about that day. I graduated and came to Washington, D.C. I was hired in the Black Studies Division at the Martin Luther King Library. Later, I worked at Howard University's Moreland Spingarn Research Center. That's where my love of African American history really blossomed into writing books and articles. I met Dr. Joyce Laminar at Howard. In 1963, while I watched from North Carolina, Joyce and her sister Dory were representing SNCC as student organizers of the march. They went to New York to work with Bayard Rustin. Often Joyce could not claim her bed until Bob Dylan finished trying out new songs for the march. Dory worked as a fundraiser. Joyce worked in the Harlem office. She traveled to New Jersey, Long Island, and Manhattan, raising money to charter buses to the march. Joyce's mother saw her interviewed by CBS correspondent Nancy Dickerson. She felt that if her mother could see the support for the march from Palmer's Crossing, Georgia, surely she would feel the commitment that Joyce and Dory had fighting for justice was well worth the price. Joyce lived to see the day when her mother was more proud than frightened for them. At the time of the 1963 march, little did I know that my life would revolve around African American history. I often see the photographs of the march, listen to the speeches and songs, and remember my sitting at that pedal machine, diligently watching and sewing. So today I've come full circle to being an activist, sharing history with the public through my work as a librarian or historian, and now as a digital storyteller.
I am happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation.
While she's bringing up that, I'll tell you what a repository is. It's the place where people and organizations send their materials. For instance, our sorority, Alpha Kappa Alpha, has their papers at the Moreland Spingarn Research Center. Different individuals may send their collections there. So usually it's a very, very large collections of letters, papers, programs, all kinds of things like that, that organizations and people will send to a repository so that for safekeeping. And that means we process them and then people come in to use them to write books. For instance, for this collection, I ended up having to go up to Yale because Dorothy Porter's collection is there. So I think, is that enough to let them know what it is? Okay, all right. Thank you so much. And good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for coming. The digital story that you saw was part of the SALA asked me to work on a digital story project with the National Park Service. So I was one of the few people that they chose to work, and we were looking at the March on Washington during the 50th anniversary. So that was how that digital story came about. And I was trying to figure out what to do, and because, as I say, I was not at the march, so I decided I would do something in honor of Dorothy and Joyce Laminar, because they were instrumental in helping to get that March on Washington here in Washington, D.C. So, and Joyce sent me some, used to work at Howard. She was a professor and acting president for a while. So Joyce sent some of those pictures to me so I could use in that digital story. So one of the things that I like to do as a women's history specialist is to honor African American women. That's really my field. And so for this book, this was, for me, was a labor of love. So Morning Spingarn is celebrating this 100th anniversary, as is the Association for the Study of African American Life and History. So I wanted to do something to honor the lady that came to Howard University and really got this collection off the ground. So I decided that it was time to do a small book on her. Now, History Press does books for the general public. So they like for you to have lots of pictures and basically under maybe 40,000 words. So this, I tell people that this is not the scholarly book that needs to be done on Dorothy Porter. The collection at Yale had about 137 boxes of materials, and that week I was there, I went through 18 of them, and they were unprocessed. So it was a little bit difficult, but I did get through a lot of them, but I know that there's a lot that I missed because of the fact that I didn't get through all of them. So I do think that, and hoping that this will inspire someone, once those papers are processed at Howard, not at Howard, at Yale, to have someone to come in and actually do a very, very scholarly work on her, which she deserves. What I'm going to do, the book basically puts Dorothy Porter at Howard University, but I'll tell you a little bit about her. She was born in 1905, and she lived in Montclair, New Jersey, in an Irish Catholic neighborhood. So when she graduated from high school, she didn't really know where she wanted to go to school, and one of her mother's friends told her about Minor Teachers College. So, and asked her, said, why don't you come down here and go to school? So she did, and as a student at Minor, she ran into one of the librarians, and they became good friends, and that librarian talked her into going to library school and getting her library degree. So what she did after she came out of Minor's Teachers College, she also started working on her master's degree in library science at Columbia in New York. And she was back and forth between New York and DC. She was hired at Howard University actually in 1928, and she got her degree. She also had gotten a degree from Howard in 1925. So she was back, as I say, she was back and forth between Washington and New York, and working on that master's degree. So in 1928, she was working at a library in New York, and also trying to finish up the degree. And she was asked to come to Howard University to be a librarian. And of course, there was another reason that she wanted to come to Howard University too. She had met James Porter in New York, and he was a professor of art at Howard University. So there were two reasons for her to come. So they got married in 1929, and in 1930, she was made what they call the supervisor of the Negro Collection. So we'll take it from there. And one of the things about Dorothy Porter is that she was also called the bag lady. The story goes that whenever someone died in Washington, that as the undertaker was taking the corpse out, she'd be in there with her bags collecting materials. So she went she went everywhere collecting materials. She collected the types of materials that they didn't think would be important. She collected posters, pictures, all kinds of things that she collected because she wanted to document our history. So she went around everywhere, and since her husband was also traveling around the world doing artwork and paintings, she also, whenever he'd go out of the country, she would go with him,
And so she collected materials. So we have African American materials, Caribbean materials, and African history materials at the Moreland Spingarn Research Center. And almost anybody that was doing research had to come to Howard University, to the Moreland Spingarn Research Center, because we were the ones that had one of the largest collections in the world. The first picture there is of Kelly Miller. Kelly Miller was a professor at Howard, and one of the things that he wanted to do was to set up this national library, Negro library. And he started working on that, and he also talked Jesse Moreland into giving us his collection in 1914. So he was the person that really got the collection started there, and that was what Dorothy Porter started working with when she came there. So when Dorothy Porter came and was made supervisor, we had the Moreland collection, we had the Tappan collection, and we had a couple of other collections. So what she started doing was going around in the library and getting all the Black history materials to put them into the special Moreland collection. So, but Kelly Miller was really the person that was instrumental in that. And this is Jesse Moreland. Again, we got his collection in 1914, and it was a very, very large collection of materials. This is Mordecai Johnson. Now, Mordecai Johnson and Dorothy Porter came to Howard about the same time, and Mordecai Johnson was the very first Black president of Howard University. Most of the colleges at that time did have white presidents. The next picture is of Arthur Spingarn. Now, in 1946, we purchased the Arthur Spingarn collection. He was a collector of books, and a lot of his books were in foreign languages. So you might find books in his collection that were in Spanish and maybe some of the African languages. So he collected all types of materials. And for years after, both Jesse Moreland and Arthur Spingarn still added to the collection. And this is a dedication of the Spingarn collection in the Moreland room. And there's Dorothy Porter and Dr. Reason, who was the library director at that time. So that was an actual formal ceremony. Most of the pictures that most of us remember Dorothy Porter, remember her as an older lady. And I was a little bit afraid to use that picture on the cover because she was so young. But I really liked that cover picture because it showed her working. It showed the card catalog, which we don't know about today. We do digital library collections now. So, and it showed a dial-up telephone on the side. So if you look at page 40 in the book, you'll see that big picture there. And it also had an inkwell in where she was working from. So these are some of the things that we don't see in today's society. So I wanted to really show that picture and show her working. Most of the pictures you'll see of Dorothy Porter, you see her in the stacks working. One of the things that pretty much everybody said about Dorothy Porter was that she was extremely helpful to people. She really did go out of her way to make sure that if a patron came in, that they got the information that they needed. So again, almost everybody came to Howard University. W.B. Du Bois, Langston Hughes, John Blassingame, Darlene Clark Hine, all those people that you're reading about in your classes now that did books, basically had to come to Moreland Spingarn to get that information. So she was extremely helpful. Now, one of the things she would do for the faculty on campus, she had all of the librarians that worked for her. She would have them all them up, and of course she was doing as well, working on bibliography so that they could send them to those faculty members, and the faculty member could send their students in to do research. So that was one of the ways that she was able to help the faculty get the students in to do their research. This is another picture of her in the stack area. In the reading room, that reading room they saw, that's where the Spingarn collection is. It's behind locked glass cases, and also in the back there's the Moreland collection. And downstairs is our manuscript collection, and that is where we keep our processed materials, those repositories. We keep them in what we call the manuscript division. The reference department where I worked, we kept the books and the journals. This is Dorothy Porter in the reading room helping a student. As I say, the glass cases there that she's opening, that's the Spingarn collection there. And you'll see a picture of Jesse Moreland on the fireplace, over the fireplace. One of the things that Dorothy Porter did, she helped, again, as I said, she helped everybody. So when she found out this group of young ladies was coming from New Guinea over here to study English, she took them under her wing. And she found housing for them, she made sure that they had food and everything. But that was just what she did. So this was not anything unusual for Dorothy Porter. She really went out of her way. She was a community person. She wasn't one of these people that was so high up that you couldn't talk to her. She was really a community person. She would go out into the community to work. And one of the things that she did when she first came to Howard was that she went to see Carter G. Woodson, who had just started the Association for the Study. At that time, it was called Negro Life and History. Because as growing up in New Jersey, she didn't get a lot of black history. And then she became supervisor of this collection. She knew she didn't know a lot of black history. So she went to the person that did. And one of the things, when he was doing Black History Week at that time, they worked together. She would supply a lot of the documents and things that he would use in what we call the Black History kits. And each kit had a theme every year. So she would help him get the materials together, and then she would also go out into the community and talk about those materials as well. So she did two things in working with him. She really helped him get materials, and then she also helped him promote the materials. In the 1970s, the Ford Foundation decided that they were going to start giving a lot of the black institutions money so that they could develop their black history collections. And this is a picture of a group of black history, most of them were chairs of departments, but they were in Aspen, Colorado, and they were trying to develop the plan for getting materials to especially a lot of the smaller libraries. And one of the librarians told me that what they would do, a lot of times when smaller schools may not have a grant office, so what they would do, they would tell the people, okay, you write your grant up and then send it to us. We'll tweak it into the grant language, because when you're getting grants, you have to have it has to fit their model, whatever it is they want you to have. So they would help them, and so that everybody across the country, not just a few libraries, could have the materials. They wanted to make sure that many libraries across the country would be able to have materials in their collection. So that was what they did. They really went out of their way to make sure that the collections were spread out across the country. This is Dorothy Porter in Nigeria. As I told you, she traveled, and everybody, she was known throughout the world. So from 1962 to 64, she was over in Nigeria helping them set up what we call the National Library of Nigeria. The other thing she would do in the collection, when she was ordering newspapers, she ordered newspapers from across the world. So a lot of the African students, she got newspapers from pretty much every African country. So most of the time the African students would come in to read the papers because that was their only way of getting information from their home. So it became very, very popular, all the newspapers in the collection. And then she started writing grants to also get those collections put on microfilm, because paper starts to yellow and it'll disintegrate after a while. So she was able to get grant money to also put a lot of those newspapers on microfilm so that the students could come in and use them. This is her also in Africa again. She was on a panel over there. So again, she was invited across the country to go to things. So and be a panelist and to speak about Black history. So she was in Africa doing a panel work. This is she and her first husband. This is James Porter standing beside her. And again, as James Porter was traveling the country doing his artwork, Dorothy Porter would be going through and finding anything that she could find to bring back. One of the things she also did was, what they would do was exchanges, because a lot of times she didn't have the money to buy things. So what she would do, she would tell somebody in another country, we'll send you some of our materials, and if you'll send us some of yours. So that was how they did exchanges, so that each country would have materials on the other country. This is James Reason, who was head of the library at the time. And at that time, Spingarn was under Founders Library. Now, where the library was first on the campus was in the Carnegie Building. And then in 1939, a Founders Library was built, and they moved into that building. The next couple of plaques. Now, Dorothy Porter received all kinds of accolades. When I went to her house, one of her walls was just filled with plaques of organizations that had given her plaques and things because of the fact that she helped them so much. Again, anybody that was doing research and doing programs and things of that nature, Dorothy Porter would always go out of her way to make sure that she helped them to get the things that they needed so that you could have a successful program. The next few pictures are of her retirement. Now, Dorothy Porter retired from Howard University in 1973. Now, I came in 74, and but she didn't go home and sit down. She worked at 90 years old. Dorothy Porter was writing a book. So she worked until she died. But she actually officially retired from Howard University in 1973. So I put in a few pictures of her retirement party. Again, practically the next day she was back in there doing work. So she never really left us. She was always around, and we could always go to her. When I started writing books, when I started doing bibliographies for Greenwood Press, I went to her house several times, and she would tweak things for me, help me, give me advice. So she was just instrumental in doing things like that. She really liked helping people. So especially if you were serious about doing your research. And once she retired, the Moreland Room was named the Dorothy Porter Room right after she retired. And that's one of the other retirement photos of her. This is the Schlesinger Library Oral History Project. Again, Dorothy Porter was asked to be, and I'm sure she couldn't work on every project, but as many projects as she could work on and give you assistance, she did. So this was their Black Women's Oral History Project board. And so she worked with them to get oral history collections to the Schlesinger Library on Black women. So again, helped everybody. One of the people that she helped was John Pope Franklin, who worked from slavery to freedom. And he talked about the fact that Dorothy Porter helped him find information on a gentleman that he was working on, George Christopher Williams. And he said that he went in there and he told Dorothy Porter, he says, I can't find any information on this man. So a few days later, Dorothy Porter comes up with a letter that he had written to Howard University trying to gain admission. And he talked about his family and a few other things, how they traveled across the country and everything. So that really gave him some of the information that he needed to really get this project off the ground. So what I did was talk to lots and lots of people, because since Dorothy Porter was no longer with us, I wanted people to tell me some of the things that, as they came into the center, how she helped them. And everybody talked about how helpful she was to them as far as getting materials. She came, again, as I told you, newspapers were very important. One thing, because the newspapers tell you what's going on locally in your community. So she thought newspapers were extremely important to let you know what was going on. It would talk about everything, the politics, the culture, the music, so everything they talked about in those local newspapers. So this is how you found out a lot of your information. So she came back and was working with our manuscript division as we were trying to get more newspapers processed and put on microfilm. She's getting an award. She was a Howard grad as well. So Dr. James Cheek is giving her an alumni award for all of the work that she did. Again, Dorothy Porter stayed around campus, just as I said, up until Dorothy Porter was working until basically a few months before she passed away. Dorothy Porter was a Delta, so all you Delta girls out there, this is your sorority sister, and so they also gave her an award for some of the work that she did with them. Again, she worked with so many different people. This is one of the book parties that Sharon Harley and Rosalind Turborg Penn did. Again, when we started doing Black women's history, Darlene Clark Hine, Sharon Harley, Evelyn Brooks Barnett, we were all trying to find information. So what we did as librarians, we tried to find as much bibliographic information as we could so that teachers that were just beginning to teach Black women's history would have lots of resources to give to their students. And so Sharon then did a book called Black Women's Struggles and Images. And this is at a book party, and they dedicated this book to Dorothy Porter. And as you look in a lot of the books that you see, you will see that she has given credit in many, many books. They will thank her for the help that she did in helping them get their materials ready for their book. So again, she just did as much as she could to help you get your materials published. Because that was the thing, we wanted to get the materials out to people so that you could come and, you know, for future generations, so that when you do research, say 100 years from now, there'll still be materials in Moreland Spingarn for you to come and do research. Now this is Dorothy Porter with her second husband, Charles Wesley. And Charles Wesley had been president of 2 black universities. And again, he was also writing a book as well, publishing. And he also worked for the Association for the Study of African American Life and History. Dorothy became very, very active, again, with Carter G. Woodson and the association. She came to the conferences every year. She gave papers. Anybody that came, if you saw Dorothy Porter at a solid conference, there were always people around her. That was because everybody was coming up thanking her for the fact that she helped them get their research done, or helped them get some grant money. So she was, again, was always trying to help people to get this information out to folks. This is the next couple of pictures are what we call our Howard University Museum. And you remember the picture I showed you first of Kelly Miller? This was Kelly Miller's dream coming to fruition, but 30-something years after he died. So Dorothy Porter was working on that with him, but of course he died before it came to fruition, and she kept working on that particular project. In 1979, the Howard University Museum opened. One of the things about the museum, because we not only collected books and manuscripts, we also had artifacts. For instance, we had Frederick Douglass's skull cap and his eyeglasses. We had African gold weights. We had a ball gown that belonged to Mary Church Terrell. So we had all kinds of artifacts like that as well. So we wanted to have a place where you could show the artifacts that we had, because everything goes together when you're doing research. So we wanted a place where you could show some of the artifacts and things that we had collected over the years. So that was the reason for the Howard University Museum. And usually when students would come from across the country, that was where I usually always gave them a tour of our artifacts, so that they would know some of the things that we had in the collection. So again, we had all kinds of materials there. You see that too good, but she's at a book party with 2 of her friends. One of them is Jeffrey Stewart, and the other one is David Driscoll. And David Driscoll is the person, I don't know if you know, the David Driscoll Center at the University of Maryland is named after this man. Yeah, very, very, and he's from my home area, believe it or not, my great aunt Talking. So again, you know, it's a small world when you start talking to people and you come to find out, okay, you know this person, and like we've known each other for years, Barbara Dunn in the back, we've worked together for years. So everything just sort of comes full circle, and you come to find out that you end up knowing a whole bunch of people that you didn't think you knew. And all of us are doing basically the same thing. We're getting information out to people. We're teaching, and we're just trying to make sure that the next generation of people have this information for their research. Because, you know, as far as doing Black history, we have just touched the tip of the iceberg. There's so much that needs to be done. So any of you that are thinking about doing Black history topics, please do. Because again, we need this information, but we also need the libraries like we had at Howard, Schaumburg, Fisk, and other places, so that we can collect those materials so that you can come there in the future and use them for your research. This is a picture of Dorothy Porter with her daughter, Connie. She had 1 child by her first husband. And as you see Dorothy's sitting by an organ, Dorothy Porter learned how to play piano as a little girl. And what she would do to earn money, she used to teach students in the New Jersey area. She taught them for $1 a lesson. So that's how she made her little spending money. Her brother talked about the fact that she was not only a smart young lady, but also she was a homemaker. She loved to cook, she loved to sew, she loved to play the piano. So she also liked to do all of those kinds of things, and I can attest to the fact that she could cook well. One time we had, I was doing a program and we had the lady from Schaumburg to come down, and they were, of course, colleagues with big collections. And so after the program the next day, Dorothy Porter invited she and I over to her house and cooked the most scrumptious meal you ever wanted to eat. And to have that meal, and then to sit there between these two ladies, the lady was Jean Blackwell Hudson from Schaumburg, and Dorothy Porter, to sit there and to let them two ladies talk to you about collecting books for those large collections. As they say, I was in library in heaven that day. So, again, everybody that talked about her talked about how, and they helped each other. It wasn't really as much competition as we would think it was. People helped each other. If the collectors will, if they knew that you were looking for something, like Charles Blockson would talk about the fact that sometimes he'd be looking for a book or something, and he would tell Dorothy Porter and the rest of them. And if somebody saw it somewhere, they would let the other one know, this collection, this book, it can be found such and such, and and make sure that they would get in touch with the people so that they could get their books. And one of the things we did was a Black Bibliophiles conference at Howard to talk about these people. And that's what's coming up next. What we did, and Dorothy Porter was the one that helped us get these people together. Charles Blockson and a few others, Helen Armstrong, Armstead Johnson, and a few others that were collectors of Black history. So we brought them there so that they could talk about how they collected the books that they did, and also some of the ones that had passed on. We had people doing papers about them, so that we could honor the people that were the collectors of these books, and also they were mainly placing them in different collections so that they could be used by different people across the country. This is Dorothy Porter. She received several different honorary degrees, and this is just one from that she received from Syracuse University. So she, again, she received lots and lots of accolades. I think one in my appendix, I mainly talk about the things that, some of the awards and things that she got over the years. This is Dorothy Porter at the W. Du Bois Institute. She was up there, she had a Ford Foundation grant to go up there and work for a year. And one of the things, the former director, I was talking to him, he says, when Dorothy Porter came, she told me, she said, I'm really kind of intimidated because I'm around all these young scholars and I don't know if I'm gonna really fit in. Well, when they had their first session, Dorothy Porter gets up and tells them, she said, well, I've only written 18 pages. And they looked at her and said, we haven't even started unpacking yet. So they had, and then what she did, as each of them got up to talk about the thing that they were going to work on that year, their project, she knew something about every project there was. So she became the belle of the ball up there because they could all go to her and get information out. You can find this at such and such a library. You can find this somewhere. So she was telling them where to get their materials. So she fit right in. This is her at one of her book signings. Again, Dorothy Porter was a prolific writer. She had several books that came out, mainly bibliography. She did lots of biographical sketches, and she worked for the Journal of Negro History, Journal of Negro Education. Her bibliography that I have in the books, just pages of materials that she published over the years, again, to help us locate where materials are on particular subjects. So she was very, very, very prolific. This is she with Camille Phillips from the Hatch-Phillips collection in New York. Again, because her husband was an artist, she also knew all of the artists because they were all friends. So Camille had her to come up and talk about the Moreland Spingarn Research Center and to help with, to talk about some of the artwork that was in her own collection. So, and Camille gave me permission to use that picture of her. The next few pictures are going to be of, we had a Dorothy Porter Wesley lecture series, and so we honored her. And this is she with her daughter and son-in-law at one of the programs. One of the things that Dr. Thomas Battle did when he was there, he wanted to have a program where we were going to honor her and bring in other librarians that had over the years that she had helped and now working and doing different things in their collection. So everybody that came there talked about the fact that they were standing on Dorothy Porter's shoulders because she helped them either get that job or get something that they needed for their collection. So she was very, very instrumental in helping everyone. And I did slip another picture in there. This is the 100th anniversary of Mordecai Johnson, and she was asked to speak on that. She spoke on all kinds of panels, all across the world. So again, she was just that prolific. So I'm gonna get back to the Dorothy Porter Wesley lecture series. This is Clara Jones, the lady that's sitting next to her. Now, Clara Jones was the very first president first director of the Detroit Public Library. She was also the first black president of the American Library Association. So again, they had been longtime friends. So she came and talked about how Dr. Porter had helped her as far as getting the jobs that she got. This is Dorothy Porter, that's Thomas Battle, and E.J. Josie. E.J. Josie was a student at Howard in the 40s. Dorothy Porter ended up talking him into going to library school. And then he became, he started what we call the Black Caucus of the American Library Association. And the book just won an award from the Black Caucus of the Library Association. It's the Honor Book Award for Fiction for 2015. So as you say, what goes around comes around. So she was honored with, that book was honored because of the fact that she also, again, helped so many of us librarians as we were getting our materials. This is Hardy Franklin, who was director of the DC Public Library System. Again, one of her students that she helped when he was in library school, and then when he became director of the DC Public Library System, again, she was helping him as far as helping staff and all kinds of things. And this is Mary Lennox, who was also dean of University of Missouri Library School. Again, we had all kinds of librarians come in. We even had Major Owens, who was House of Representatives, yes, but he was also a librarian. And so we even had him come and talk about the process of going from a librarian to a congressperson. So again, many folk came. We had that for about 20 years. And in 1995, the year that she died, she was our guest speaker that year because we were honoring her. And then we had a few after she died. But when we honored her in 1995, what she came and talked about, she said, you know, I don't want to talk about me. She said, I want to talk about us doing another history of Howard University, to take where one of the histories that left off. So we had two histories of Howard. So she really wanted to, Rayford Logan's last book was the one that came up in 1967. She wanted us to really work on another book on Howard University history. So she didn't really want to talk about herself. And this is Dorothy Porter with Lorraine Bennett. And this is at one of the ASALA conferences again. Anytime you saw Dorothy Porter at a conference, you saw all kinds of people around her because she helped so many people. And the last picture is of her at the White House with her daughter and President Bill Clinton. That year, the National Endowment for the Humanities had given the Franklin Award, and in 1990, she received that award, and it was given to her at the White House. So I'll stop here, and if you have some questions, I'll be glad to answer them for you.
I heard you say that her papers are here.
Yes, I did get them.
That was my question. Why?
Well, and somebody also asked me, did I think that she wanted them there? And I just say I don't know for sure, because what I would have thought she would have done if she wanted them to come to Howard is that she would have done a deed of gift. When she got sick, you know, her daughter took over. So the daughter had all three collections. She had Dorothy's collection, she had her father James Porter's collection, and she had Charles Wesley's collection. And she was taken, first, I think it's in the last chapter of my book, she took them to Florida first, and I think they were going to start a library there at the Broward County Library. That didn't work out evidently, so I think they only bought the actual books, some of the books that she had. And after a while, Connie got sick too. Connie died in 2012. And what I'm thinking is that she just got too sick to deal with it, and she put everything up for auction. So, you know, when it goes up for auction, it's whoever's the highest bidder. So what I had hoped was that they would all stay together, because I did find a few things in her collection that belong in Wesley's collection or in Porter's collection, and I'm sure there's some stuff in their collection that belongs in hers. So I wish that they had all been, and I think it was Harvard University had actually wanted all three collections, and she didn't take that offer. So I'm not sure why she didn't, because that would have meant all three of them would have been together. But so that's how they ended up where they were. And as I say,
You say Jen, three.
all three collections: Porter, James, hers, James, and Charles.
Yale
James,
has all three?
no, Yale has just Dorothy Porter's. Emory has James Porter's,
Okay.
and the Alpha fraternity has
Charles Wesley.
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 Hopefully, those will come to Howard eventually, because we have the five Alpha papers at Howard. So I'm hoping eventually those will get there. But at this point, and you can't look at Wesley's papers because the Alphas don't have a place, you know, a library or anything. You can look at each of the Porter's papers, but again, both collections are unprocessed.
So there's no finding aid?
It's a sort of a finding aid, but when you look at it, like she might have something that said 1957, but you might find stuff in there from 85 or what, you know, anytime. So it was just all over the place, and pictures, lots of pictures everywhere, and I even found some dental floss in one of the boxes.
So is it the white institutions are neglecting the collections?
They just hadn't gotten around to doing that
Processing.
one. I'm not sure when they're going to do it. Some people, you know, I get that question too. I get the question, are they being collected? Are they being, you know, were they not being processed in any of the libraries, black or white? So, but no, they closed this year, the Banneker Library. I'm hoping that'll be one of the collections that they process, because I say it was 137 boxes. I only got to go through 18 of those boxes. So I know I missed a lot. Like, I didn't see a lot on the African Studies Association, and I know she was very, very active with them. I didn't see as much on the National Council of Negro Women, and I knew she was active with them because she worked with them in the 40s when they were talking about getting a Black women's archives together, which ended up becoming the Bethune Archives. But she was working on that with Sue Bailey Thurman back in the 40s. So I know I missed a lot of stuff.
How do we get Black people to have confidence enough in Black institutions? For example, we have elections here at Bowie State.
Yes.
But what keeps bothering me is we always want to send out papers. Like Rayford Logan, who taught me,
Right.
gave his papers to somebody else. He did not leave them at Howard
Right,
University.
he sure did.
Although he spent his life there.
Mhm.
So it's sad to me when we have our great legacy people will not have confidence enough in our Black institutions to leave papers with us.
Right, and that's very
So
true.
how do we turn that?
I don't know. I really, because we know we've been trying. One of the things, you know, is I talk to people, and especially Black women, because we tend to not collect our own stuff. We'll collect our husbands, uncles, aunt, you know, but we won't collect our own, and we don't think our materials are important. But it's just, you know, trying to get them to understand that. Well, one of the things they say, well, it won't get processed. Well, it's not getting processed with these collections either. So, you know, that's not valid at this point. But it's just very hard to get people to understand that that we need you to put your collections in the Black institutions, and some people, like for instance the AKAs, gave money with their collection.
A whole lot of it.
Yes, they did, to help get it processed. So
And their collection is where now?
at Howard.
Howard.
Some more. So
Like we don't have Dr. Putnam's collection from Bowie State.
where did it go?
We don't know where they are.
Uh-huh.
We got her books.
Uh-huh.
She gave them to us, but
Uh-huh.
we don't have her collection, her papers.
Uh-huh. Do you think the son has? Because I'm not sure if Howard has some.
I don't think anybody knows where, we don't know where he is.
I used to have this information. If you need it, I can try to find it for you. He's out of.
So her papers should be here at Bowie State.
Yeah, it should be, yeah. And like, for instance, and one of the things I tell people too is that if you have a collection, you need to get it where you want it to go yourself. Even sometimes when you do a will or deed gift, sometimes the family doesn't honor that, because we've had a couple of cases where collections that were supposed to come to Howard, Dr. Battle was somewhere one time and saw a collection that we actually had the deed of gift. and it went, so the family sent it somewhere else. And so when they, they ended up having to send it back to us, send it to us. They didn't have to send it back, we never got there. But they had to send it to us because we had a deed of gift. But a lot of times you don't, and then something I did a few weeks ago, somebody had passed and they put on one of the listservs that they were trying to figure out where to put this lady's material. So I contacted Ida at Howard, and Howard said, we have the deed of gift. So I sent that back to them, and I said, y'all need to talk to the people at Howard because they have the deed of gift and it shouldn't be going there. So, but it was just so happened that I just caught that, But a lot of that slips through the cracks. But what I tell people, I said, if you want it to be somewhere, you need to make sure that it gets there while you're still able to have control of your life, and you can make sure that it gets where you want it to be. So, but it's very hard. It's very hard.
Second question. About how much money did Yale, when it was auctioned, how much did Yale pay for what they received?
I think for all three collections, she got less than $150,000.
Oh, wow.
And
Less than 150?
yes. And see, when the first library said they wanted all three of them, they were going to give her $100,000 for each collection, so she would have gotten $300,000. But she didn't even get hardly half of that when it ended up being auctioned off. So, and that was sad. That was sad.
That's a risk you take when you go to auction.
Right. Yeah.
How were you able to research the collection when it was unprocessed? Because in a lot of cases, they don't allow you to see the materials if they have not processed them.
Okay. What they did, they do have sort of a finding aid, but as I say, sometimes, although it might say a certain date or a certain topic, when you actually look through it, there's other stuff there as well. So when they process it, they'll hopefully find all that and put stuff together, the like materials together. But at that point, it was frustrating. By Wednesday, I was almost in tears.
Oh, I thought that just because you were Janet Sims Wood, that they said, yes, you can come look at.
And you can only get 10 boxes at a time. So I ordered the boxes before I went there, and then I ordered some more as soon as I got there. But again, I was only able to go to about 18 of those boxes because it was just so much confusion there for me. I mean, I think Connie had tried to put some things in kind of order, but not really. And see, once it's processed, the finding aid that they have now will be different. The new one will be totally different because they'll be putting them, hopefully. And the thing that bothers me, that scares me a lot of times, is that a lot of times they won't know who the other people are that weren't real famous. Like, for instance, Sue Bailey Thurman with the National Council of Negro Women, the wife of Howard Thurman at the chapel. She was very instrumental in NCNW, but she wasn't real noticed. She wasn't really popular. Her name is not out there that much. I'm thinking, will they really know who she is when they do process these papers? Because sometimes they won't process every name. So that's another thing that kind of scares me a little bit. So what I was doing when I was there, as I come across names of people, of letters and things like that, because there were lots of letters, just mounds and mounds of letters. I would sort of maybe write them a note to say this person did this, and I told them what that person was famous for or what they had been doing, so that they would know that this is somebody that we. Because again, she got so many letters from so many different people, and they'll know people like W. Du Bois and people like that. But some of the lesser known people, I'm not sure they'll know who they are.
I know when the Smithsonian, when American History got the Scurlock collection, that was the same thing that happened because he was a very famous Washington, D.C. photographer who took pictures of Black life in D.C., and they didn't know a lot of the personalities in the pictures. I know when they first got it. I don't know what's happened now with the African American Museum, if they've given the collection over there or not. But I know in the beginning that was a real concern because they couldn't identify people.
Right. And that's the other thing I have to also tell people, that when you're doing your photographs, now we don't do photographs that much, but always document who they are and the date, maybe the date and the event. Yeah,
so you all tag them on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, but I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, you don't know when it's digital now. We don't know exactly what the future holds as far as, I mean, just even like writing letters. We don't write letters anymore. And you found a lot of information in letters that people wrote. So and that's how you kind of document the history and and what happened at what time. So I don't know how we're going to document history in the future.
Chicago have a format for emails.
Say what?
You need to see if the APA and Chicago style manuals will have a format
They do.
They do.
They do. Uh-huh.
for email.
Yeah, they do.
Somebody has to save them to the
Yeah.
hard copy
Right.
or something like that, or print them out.
Yeah.
Did Ms. Porter offer any of her assistance to cases like Brown versus
Oh, interesting
Board of Education,
question.
or
Good question.
any civil rights legislation that was passed? Did she offer any of her assistance on that?
Well, she basically giving information as far as people coming and doing research, because the Brown case was basically done at Howard. The lawyers actually came. In fact, they were in the library because they didn't have law school at that time. Charles.
You'll see it in my lecture. I opened it up today.
Yeah. So basically, mainly providing information and resources for for them.
You're the last person on the program, Dr. Miller.
Pardon?
You give the closing remarks.
I know, but I just want you to close that.
Okay, so I want to thank again Dr. Sims-Woods for coming out here. I'm hoping that some of you history majors, even some of your government majors, even some of the other majors that we have in here, maybe have gotten the library bug and have thought about possibly pursuing that as a career with your educational background that you're getting here at Bowie State University. I think that, like I promised you, we had a fabulous program today, and now we will turn it over to Dr. Miller for the closing. Thank you.
Okay.
I would like for you to give Dr. Sims-Woods a round of applause. She was being so modest today because she's a pioneer in her own right, not only in women's history, but she's a fantastic bibliographer herself, a great author, and we're so proud to have her. And I hate to tell you, I've known her almost 40 years.
Oh, I tell you.
So we've been long-standing friends. And so I was just so thrilled that she decided to come to Bowie State. I want to acknowledge the director of our library, Mary Rucker. Would you please stand?
And we know each other. We were in library school together at the University of Maryland, and we worked together at Martin Luther King Library. So we've known each other even longer than you. So I'm not gonna. Hey, I'm trying to tell anybody's age, but well, she was a baby when she was there. So.
Can I welcome you?
Yes, please.
Yes. Janet and I go way back, as she said, and I was just so delighted when I found out that you were coming, because we normally don't make this room available after 5 o'clock.
Thank you very much.
But I knew I would be here.
Uh-huh.
So we welcome you to Bowie State, and let you know that we have an archivist now, and that is being showcased through our sesquicentennial celebrations. Next week, the posters will be placed around. So I'm sorry you're missing that, but maybe you can come back and see some of the history that we've collected, so that we can display the history to the students. And we do want them to come back and to look at that display. But this is a year for sesquicentennial.
And the reason I knew that, Barbara Dunn in the back. Instead of Barbara, Barbara is a graduate
Bowie State.
of Bowie State. And that's how I knew that y'all was celebrated. That Barbara and I worked together with us all.
Yes, archives, yes. Ours is still small, but we were able to pull together quite a bit of material for the sesquicentennial. And we did receive grants for our archives. So we recognize the importance, and even with all the cuts we're getting, I'm hoping that we can continue to get funding for grant support, so that we can support it. But we do see a great difference in our the usage is up from the community, as well as on campus. So I appreciate you coming, and thanks so much.
And I thank you for making this room available for us tonight.
And Professor Robinson, would you stand? Dr. You brought your class too. Are these your books here?
Yeah.
So please make sure you take a look at this gentleman. Identify yourself. I see you on campus all the time. Please identify yourself as well.
I'm Archie Morris with the College of Business in the Management, Marketing, and Public Administration Department.
Thank you so much for coming.
And I just met him on Sunday. I spoke at the C. DeLois Tucker branch of Asala, and he was there, and so he showed up tonight. So small world.
We have so many young people who belong to the Association for the Study of African American Life and History. So just say a minute now. Our young people can do and join.
Okay.
Because you're over membership.
Yes.
So give your pitch.
Give my pitch.
Please.
Well, as you know, we really need young people because you're the future. I'm going to retire eventually. I'll be 70 in a couple of months, so But what we need is for you to become active in the association so that you can continue this history and continue to do the writing. As I said, we've only touched the tip of the iceberg as far as research is concerned. So whatever research topics you're working on, those are the things that we need to be getting out to the public in the future. And you're also, some of you are going to be college professors as well. So we need you to keep our organization going. Our organization doesn't have enough young people that are doing this work. And it's a very, very nurturing organization. If you ever come to one of our conferences, and this year will be in Atlanta, Georgia. Teachers bring their students, and some of those teachers that are bringing students now were students when I first started out in this field, because I've been in this field for over 40 years. So now, and their teachers brought them, now they're bringing their students. And we just love up on them, and we go to their sessions. We make sure that they meet all of the scholars, the books that are writing the books that they're reading in their classrooms. So we want you as the young people, as the next generation, to make sure that we continue getting this history out to folks. Because if we don't, it stops with us. It really stops. So we want you to make sure that you're doing and getting that information. And we're here to help. That's why we have the resources where we have them, so that you can come and do your research.
And also, young people, so we don't have any more Fergusons,
Right.
Trayvon Martins. People who don't know their history are always in trouble. So please, please, learn about the association. And by the way, the association used to be on the campuses of black colleges first,
Right.
before we did hotels.
Couldn't go to hotels.
Couldn't go to hotels. So please, please, find about the association as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.